Hey everybody, welcome back to this podcast, Autoimmune Life and me. With me, Louise, how are you doing? I hope everybody is feeling well. Today, as you've seen from the title of this podcast, we are going to talk about the very well documented currently GLP-1 receptor antagonists. Now, this is a medication that you may have heard called Mounjaro, or there's other ones. And what they are is a little injector that you give to your body to try and lose some weight or body fat. Let's just say weight for simplicity. Now, we're going to talk about that and the effect of that on somebody with autoimmunity in this podcast today. So I hope that you will enjoy that. Thank you so much for all the people that have downloaded, listened, subscribed, and done some reviews for us as well on this podcast. I very much appreciate that. And if you do want to give us a little review and make it a 5-star, thank you, love that, because I feel that then it shows other people that you think it's worth doing. Now, before we dive into the podcast episode and the subject that we're going to talk about today, which obviously is sensitive and there's going to have to be a little medical disclaimer on there, I do want to just quickly say, I mentioned recently-ish on a recent podcast episode that I was sort of awarded, can we call it that, or listed on a website that said what are the top Crohn's disease podcasts, and this came up as number 4. I don't know if it was just a list out, of like whether number 4 means that you're the 4th best or whatever, I'm not sure. But anyway, recently I logged into that old famous love you, hate you platform called X or Twitter, and on there I don't really go in there. I don't know about you, I find it so political and such a nerve-wracking, debatable thing, and I'm one of those highly sensitive people that picks up on stuff like that, and I don't really like it. So I decided to sort of stop posting a bit on there. But I just thought I'd check in, I'd just have a look, and there I was again, flagged up by someone completely different as one of the top Crohn's disease podcasts. Now, I'd really love to hear from you to find out if you listen to this because you've got inflammatory bowel disease known as IBD. The two main sort of named ones are Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. If you are someone, would you do me a favour and just reach out and let me know? You can leave comments or my email address is in the show notes, so feel free to just reach out and say to me you are one of those, because this really podcast now is about living with an autoimmune condition, because most of us have more than one very often, and that's not to say that that's more important than only having one or anything like that. But if people are listening because they've got Crohn's disease specifically, or IBD specifically, and please don't make the mistake of IBD and IBS, they are very different, similar symptoms but very different in their diagnosis and management. So yeah, if you're someone that's got IBD and that's why you listen, do let me know. If you've got another autoimmune illness, especially ankylosing spondylitis, please do let me know about that as well. Thank you. I would like to obviously give you the content that you want to listen to. I do have another podcast I'm about to record another episode for. It only gets about 1/10 of the downloads that we get on this one, but it feels really a warm and homey place to be. It's called A Lusher Life, so you can go and search that up and see if you can find that, and if that's something you want to be part of. It's to do with living the dream and making life better for yourself and living life by the law of attraction and terms like that. So feel free to join us over there as well. If you like these very sort of straight up, we're just having a quick chat, two friends together, me and you, having a chin wag on a podcast. So right, I'm going to dive in, but I do need to do a small medical disclaimer. So a GLP medication such as Mounjaro, I am not licensed to give advice on it. I am a registered nutritionist, so I can talk a little bit about weight loss, safely so, but I only know a very small scratch of the surface on GLP-1, and I have done some research on it in all the right ways, which is also something you can do for yourself. So I'll tell you towards the end of this podcast if you wanted to go and do some research on what's out there regarding these injections and IBD particularly, but we're going to talk about other autoimmune conditions as well. We all have seen people on TikTok having huge weight loss successes with this, and it's not something that I can really advise on. So please reach out to the right people if it's something that you want to know in a controlled fashion to help you decide whether you want to pursue the avenue of applying for these or not. Now, I'm well aware that there's people from all over the world that listen to this podcast, and it's probably very different in the US and Canada to where it is in the UK, because obviously we have our NHS service, which is incredible, but it does mean there's waiting time. So at the minute, to give you an idea, if people are trying to get on the injections on the NHS rather than paying for them, there is about a 2-year waiting list, which is obviously very long. So I'm not going to dive too much into the prescription of it and how you get it, but I have been looking at the effects of this medication on autoimmune illnesses and Crohn's and such like, and I've come up with some really interesting things. So without doubt, it does seem that let's call it Mounjaro. The Mounjaro injection seems to be giving a lot of people a lot of success with their weight loss. Now, what does it actually do? So it basically, it helps you to stay full for longer. It slows down the emptying of your stomach. Stomach is different from tummy. You'll sometimes hear me refer to tummy, which isn't an analytical, what's the word I'm looking for? Physiology, anatomy. It's not an anatomy, the tummy. It's a bit like the mind. It isn't an actual thing. It's just something we refer to in that area. But the stomach is one of the gastroenterology terms that we will use for a part of your body that is going to be taking your food into, churning it up, chiming it out, and it will then go down into your intestines. So obviously it goes through other processes. We've got liver, we've got gallbladder, we've got all these things going on. So in your stomach, the food will last there longer. And also it works on things with the brain and with the receptors in the gut to help you not feel so hungry and to reduce cravings. And this is why it's been successful. It's helping people to eat less. And also the encouraging part of this, and I do talk quite a lot about nutrition on this podcast. If you're new here and that's something that you want to be part of, then stick around because we will be talking more about that as time goes on. But with the nutritional elements, now I've been banging the drum for quite a long time. I had quite a lot of success with losing weight because with Crohn's and colitis, I'm very aware that weight can be eluding you. You can be somebody who's underweight because you're fearful of eating, because you know it's going to make you really poorly, or simple as tired. My body finds it tiring digesting food. So sometimes if you need a bit of extra energy, you might think, yeah, I'm not going to eat. And to most people that sounds very backwards, but to us with our IBD, it makes complete sense. So this is going to be obviously very different for everybody, which is why I encourage you to speak to a medical person. But I think you get the drift of where I am with that. I can't be giving you advice per se, and I'll also try not to put too much of my opinion in this, but a little bit of it will be. So that's one of the steps we've got. It empties your stomach slower. It works on the brain. It works on the receptors in the gut. It is, the GLP, it's all to do with sort of hormones and regulation of that. And I don't mean just for ladies. We've all got hormones in our bodies. We tend to talk an awful lot about the hormones we have at certain times of the month as ladies. But we've all got hormones all of the time, one of those being insulin as well. So it will also work on the pancreas and regulating blood glucose levels. Now, there is a natural way you can do this. And if you apply to have the GLP medication, the Mounjaro, let's just say that again. So if you apply to have Mounjaro, but there's different ones. So that's just the drug, the medical name, the branding. If you apply for that and you have Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or an other IBD, different from IBS, you are likely to be rejected from the program. And this is the reason why. And I know this, I've spoken to a couple of the different providers. One in the UK, I don't know if it's worldwide, but in the UK it's called Med Express. And what they tend to do is give you a little bit less on the medical advice, a little bit less on you being able to tap into having someone there on call for medical advice. And therefore it is cheaper. And then there's also Juniper, and all of these give out the different medications, not just Mounjaro, but Juniper is one that's slightly more expensive, but they do have doctors on call. They have people that you can tap into to ask questions, and it is a little bit more regulated. Now, both of these put you through a questionnaire to do with your health, and both of these have said no to dealing with anybody with IBD. And the reason is, Juniper may look at an individual case-by-case basis, so it's still worth putting it in, but the chances are they're going to say, no, you can't go on this. And if you're somebody that's holding on to your weight, because it's 100% a thing, IBD and weight regulation is just not normal. So you could be overweight and you know it's not your fault. You've got Crohn's disease and you're slightly overweight or very overweight, and yet you feel like you barely eat anything. You have my sympathies. I'm sending you a massive hug down this microphone into your ears, because it's hard. Now, I also used to work for Weight Watchers many moons ago now, and I would get people that would come and they'd cry and they would swear black was night. Or was black as night? Day was night? I don't know what I'm saying. But they would absolutely be brokenhearted that they've stuck with the program and yet they haven't lost any weight. And I looked into this back then, and I'll look into it again now. There are people who struggle with glucose regulation. Now, what I'm excited about with these new medications is that we are now starting to target people who have difficulties with glucose regulation. It isn't just motivation or being inspired or using willpower sometimes. But the dietary advice that you get from these companies now is this: drink lots of water, at least 2 litres a day. Eat low carbohydrate foods as much as possible. Eat more protein. One, it's slower to digest and slower to empty out of your stomach. What else have they said on there? Obviously, there's the general stuff, get sleep, stay motivated, focus on what you're eating, eat small amounts a day. All of these sorts of things, which basically certain people have been silenced for saying for many years. Now, if you look at the Atkins diet, many moons ago, people misinterpreted that. If you really look at healthy Atkins, it's a healthy way of eating. It's the way we're designed to eat. I don't want to get into the whole debate about meat or not meat, but, we were designed as meat eaters and green vegetables. We would have a few berries, we're talking about caveman time. We'd have a few berries that we might find on the sort of passing bushes from time to time, but we wouldn't eat massive great desserts or sugar or other things like that. We'd have the odd little bit of a berry or whatever. And we would feed and we would fast. So when you look at the advice that's being given alongside the medications now, it's sensible. It makes sense to me that they're saying, keep your carbohydrates low. We know that carbohydrates are going to spike your blood glucose levels. They're going to raise your insulin. Now, this is one thing I sit slightly on the fence with. If your insulin is raised, the job of insulin is to store fat. Okay? When we used to fast and feast, you would feast. You wouldn't know when your next meal was coming, when it was coming. So therefore, you would store some of the excess as fat so that you can use that in periods of fasting. So we know fasting now makes us burn fat, and that's the reason why, because that's how we're designed. I hope this is so far making sense and is interesting, but let's carry on. So you will find that your insulin will be high when you're eating too much. the job of insulin is to store the fat. So if you can get your insulin down and regulate your blood glucose levels, I'd also check out Glucose Goddess. She's insanely good at explaining the biochemistry behind this if you want to go a little bit deeper. She's brilliant. So yeah, you're going to get that level down of insulin. Now there's also a lot going on to do with lipids and all of that with this GLP stuff. It's quite, like, I was told, strangely enough, I went and had a reading, like a medium reading years and years ago, and this lady said, I've got problems with lipids, and she said, I don't even know what that is, but that's what they're telling me. And I was like, oh, okay. So it all targets all of that on these medications. If you're told no, if you're told you can't have this because of the damage it could do to your gut, now it's going to do damage to people's gut, they're thinking at the moment, because it can cause diarrhea or constipation. And I've looked at a lot of people's accounts who are on it and what they're saying, and a lot of people are saying they don't have any symptoms. Some people get headaches, they've drunk more water, and it seems to have rectified it. But the symptoms are very hit and miss. It's very much an individual basis. But if you've got Crohn's disease or I need to say ankylosing spondylitis, if you've got Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or IBD, you don't really want something stimulating constipation or diarrhea. That's the last thing that we want. However, if we've got a dysregulated gut already, then we need to look at trying to improve that to lower our symptoms of IBD so that we can do the other things that we need to do as well, which is, drinking the water, eating low carbohydrate. We probably know now, especially if you've listened to this podcast as well, you know about the FODMAP. You know about the low FODMAP diet. Now, FODMAP stands for different things, and that can be, you probably know this, right? Do you want to fill in the blanks with me? So we've got fructose, we've got oligosaccharides, we've got monosaccharides, saccharides, they're all sugars, they're all carbohydrates. Sugars and carbohydrates are pretty much the same thing. You can have different types of carbohydrates, and sugars is one of them. So sometimes people say, I need to keep my sugars low, and they confuse themselves, but it is all carbohydrate. So keeping those carbohydrates lower is, I think, a really good thing for the majority of people. Now, your own level of keeping that lower is going to be a very individual basis. I would suggest this: keep a diary, as always, keep a food diary, keep a track on your weight, and see also how you're feeling. If I take my carbohydrates too low and I go too far into ketosis, I get very severe palpitations, and I'm not the only person that says that. So then I'll take some electrolytes, because that's why. Take some electrolytes and get that back up, and then I'll increase my carbohydrate intake slightly. It's very difficult not to have any carbohydrates at all, and I'm not sure I'd recommend that, but you can come out the other side of that and have great amounts of energy, but you'll go through a few days of a dip. So, right, let's get back to this GLP. So, assume they've said no. Follow the dietary advice anyway, which is readily out there available. The dietary advice that they give you, or the sort of side effects or why it works, see if you can do that anyway. See if you can do a fast. See if you can keep your carbs down. See if you can pay more attention on your own without this antagonist medication. You might be able to do it, and you might be able to lose weight. Now, they're not losing weight magically because they're injecting. They're injecting, and then that's giving them a lowering of cravings. It's giving them yes, there is medical stuff here. There is. I'm not going to say, oh no, it's not. It's just motivation and willpower. It's not. But could you be motivated and have enough willpower without that injection if they turn you down? Now, there is a doctor that's saying at the moment they're looking into the research for giving it to people with IBD. And personally, can I say this? Well, just take it with a pinch of salt, okay? I think it could be, in certain circumstances, a good idea. This is the reason why. If you have a lot of adipose tissue or fat cells, that is an inflammatory trigger in your body. Also, we have inflammatory bowel disease. You don't want all this inflammation from all these different places in your body. Wherever you can lower it is going to lower your overall inflammation in your body and lower your symptoms. We know inflammation is not good for you unless you've cut your finger and it's an acute thing. Like chronic inflammation is bad for you. We know that hands down. We know that 100%. So if by losing weight, you're going to lower your inflammation from adipose tissue, would you also lower your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms slightly because the inflammation is lower? Your sort of CRP in your blood, your ESR possibly is going to lower. Are you going to feel better? Potentially, yes. Something else it does. Now, a lot of people that have got problems with IBD could potentially have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's now being called something different. I can't remember what. But obviously, fatty liver disease means you've got too much fat in your liver. And we don't want that. We want our liver to be healthy and well and to do all of the things it needs to do. You know, you want to take a paracetamol and your body be able to deal with that, not have bits of paracetamol floating around in your bloodstream. You don't want that. You want the liver to do its job properly. And if you can lower your fat percentage in your body, that's going to also help your liver and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You don't want that to get too far gone. If it gets too far gone, you might not be able to help it very much. It's a little bit like type 2 diabetes. You'll get to a level where it's very difficult to come back from, but it's far down the line. So try and see what you can do, knowing that you're not going to be able to get this medication right now. There's not going to be a quick fix. See if all those things that I've said to you has made you think, hang on a minute, let me look into this. Now, the research is encouraging that if we could be prescribed this medication, it could have this knock-on effect with our inflammation. If it's going to have an improvement on our inflammation within our body, it's going to surely improve our IBD. We hope. However, because they just don't know yet, it's too early, they just don't know. But do yourself a favour, and I've got a whole podcast series about this, why you should look up your symptoms online, right? It's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek title. But if you go to Google Scholar, okay, and then type in there in the search bar, the same as you would in normal Google, but don't do it in normal Google, do it in Google Scholar, you will hopefully get peer-reviewed papers on there. So if you used to type in GLP-1 receptor antagonists, or GLP-1 RAs, let me just double check I've got that right. Yes. So GLP-1 RAs and IBD. So type that in, see what comes up and have a read and see what you think for yourself. So studies are few at the moment, but it is coming. That's where we're sitting at today. It's the 23rd of April 2025 today. Hopefully in the future this will change, because I know that it's a medication that is helping a lot of people to lose weight in a relatively safe and pretty quick way. The other thing that might inspire you and motivate you to not go against the injections, I'm not against them, but if you can't get it prescribed, and by the way, in the UK if you try and get it prescribed on the NHS, there's like a 2-year waiting list or something, so people are having to pay privately and it's quite expensive. But you know, we all know we can't put a price on health. We'll do whatever we can to feel better. And I'm with you. If you're feeling not well today, I'm just sending a big hug to you, because it just doesn't go away, does it? Sometimes it doesn't go away. And then you'll have moments of reprieve and you'll feel, I'm feeling better today. Yeah, I'm going to stick to topic. There's a few other things I want to kind of say on there, and I'm like, how do we live our life? And that's going to be in the next podcast. So do a little subscribe or a follow if it's something that you're interested in hearing about next time, like how we live our life day to day with autoimmune. I'm going to do all of the autoimmunities. So there's hope there that we might be able to get this medication. At the moment, they're saying no to the majority of cases. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with the option of looking into what exactly would that do if we did have that injection, And how much of that can we actually control from ourselves? Please don't misunderstand that. I've said it before in this podcast, so I'm going to say it again. This is not about saying you're not motivated or inspired or this is your fault. I'm not saying that. And I think with a dysregulated gut, it's harder. So if you are overweight, I'm not going to talk about being underweight in this particular podcast, but we might talk about that at a different time. If you are overweight and you've got IBD and you want to lose weight, are there any of those descriptors for advice that they're giving you? Because it's not a miracle cure. That injection is not a miracle cure. You know, everyone that you see on TikTok or the other platforms talking about it, they're like, I still have to work on my mindset. I still have to choose the right foods. I still have to do this. I still have to do that. So what out of that can you work on without the medication? Could you fast? Could you drink more water? Could you keep a food diary and keep your calories lower? Could you use a tracker for your glucose intake, your carbohydrate intake? I mean, we know carbohydrates are difficult with us in our guts anyway. So think about it. Look up more than I've just told you here now, because I spent a lot of time researching this. I hope you appreciate it. I hope if you're someone that's listening and you thought, God, that's really inspired me to feel a certain way, please let me know. This podcast doesn't cost any money, obviously, to you to listen to. It isn't, you'll have noticed, I don't say, reach out to me for a one-to-one. I mean, I'm not totally opposed to it, but also because my symptoms are up and down, it's not something I feel I can offer. But what I would like in way of payment, not in monetary terms, is to hear from you to say, this has helped. You now feel, right in this moment in time as I'm speaking to you, you now feel that you can grab a hold of something and think, I'm going to run with that. I'm going to go and try this and see if I can improve my symptoms. I'm going to see if I can lose a little bit of weight. Oh, that was where I was going. The people on TikTok and such like, who are saying they've still got to use all of their everything. Oh, goodness. They are, some of them, you hear the stories of like, I've lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks. Some of them are losing £1 a week. £1 a week is what you lose on Weight Watchers. £1 a week equates to 3,500 calories per week less intake. But if you're somebody with IBD, the calories might not just be the thing. It could be carbohydrate intake rather than calories. I don't think calories is a one rule fits all for people. I don't believe that. But as a rule of thumb, 3,500 calories less intake on an average person is going to equate to £1 a week. So you divide that by 7. That's 700 calories per day less that you've got to eat to lose £1. So if you're eating 3,000 calories a day, you've got to take that down to 2,300. That's a big drop in calories. That's like 2 Mars bars, isn't it? Ish. So yeah, 7 slices of bread. That sounds like a lot. 2 cakes, 2 big muffin cakes. Or a complete dinner, like a curry and rice type of dinner. Per day that you need to lessen. That's a lot to lose £1. I'm sorry, I didn't put my do not disturb on. So I think we've got this with or without the medication. I'm not averse to it, but at the moment we're being told no. You're being told no to Manjaro because you've got IBD. That's a good title for this podcast. So can you do something else? Because if you looked at someone's story and you thought, oh my God, there's an answer for me. I can inject and I can lose all this weight. It excited you, did it not? Now, what excited you? The idea of you injecting yourself? No. The idea of losing weight and being slimmer and getting back into those old clothes? Yes. the idea of feeling better because your joints are hurting. That's what excited you. So still be excited by that. Still be excited. And know that you can do it a different way. You can try. It might not be as fast. It might not be as easy. It might not be as effective because you might still have cravings. But come back and listen to this podcast again. Listen to the other podcasts. Find a way of motivating yourself by watching something online or reading the research papers, the primary ones, the good ones. Yeah? And just know that you're not on your own. You are not the only person that feels like this. You'll get days when you'll think, nobody understands me. Nobody gets it. And we are all different. We are all different. Nobody's going to understand your entire set of circumstances. But there are people out there, communities of people. Some of them are full of idiots. Some of them will be full of great people. But you are not on your own. You're not the only person that feels that life is hard and life is difficult. But let's try and lift ourselves up, knowing that right now we can't get this Mounjaro. If you're someone with IBD that has been prescribed it, like not on a dodgy way, like don't go into the websites and lie. Don't go in there and do that. That could be dangerous, and that just is, if you say, no, I've not got IBD, well, on your head be it, because that's a bit crazy, right? There's doctors at the other end researching this stuff and saying, no, we can't have it. And I don't always agree with what doctors say. But you're hearing me. So it's a great solution for people who don't have IBD or other things that they're saying no to. I think the idea of, because they're starting to talk about using it to get rid of the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And I love that. But also another way you can get rid of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is fasting and losing some body fat. And the best way to lose body fat really is to get yourself into a little bit of ketosis. I don't want to talk too much about me, but the only time I found it easy to lose weight, where it just felt like it melted off of me, was when I was in ketosis. So we was talking about the Atkins, weren't we, earlier? And I said to you at the end, we'll talk about this a bit more. So the Atkins diet used to be, people used to think, oh, you just got to eat a load of butter and cream and it's fat, 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 fat. But now there's what they call the healthy Atkins. Do any of you follow Dr. Berg? Dr. Eric Berg. Have a look at his stuff on YouTube. He's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So with Dr. Berg, you can have this whole scenario of healthy Atkins. He tells you what you can do and what you can't do. And it's not all about just eating as much fat as you possibly can. Although he does suggest fat for energy is better than carbohydrates for energy, because it's something we're naturally predisposed to digest. And also we do need fat in our bodies. We need it for hormone regulation. We need it for brain function. We need it for a lot of things. So have a look at Dr. Berg. Have a look at healthy Atkins. Now on our plate, greens and a little bit of meat, and I mean a little bit of meat. Chicken breast should be like the size of your fist, not a blinking great like half a. So look at healthy Atkins. Is it something that you would want to do? Things like lots of greens, lots of salads, lots of fish and seeds and nuts. Personally, I can't tolerate like whole nuts or chopped nuts. I need ground nuts. Might talk about that in a whole separate podcast all of its own. But this has been a longer one today because I do feel very passionate about this potential answer, about potentially helping people losing weight, because we are in such an epidemic. And I can remember years ago, I'm 55 years old now. I don't know why I keep mentioning that at the age of 55. I never mentioned my age before, ever. But in the past, they were talking about this epidemic of obesity. And it was unbelievable. I was like, nah, that's not going to happen. And here we are. So the majority of people will either be overweight or obese. And we need to do something, because in another 20 years, people are going to be so infirm and unable to work. Who's going to uphold the world? What are we going to do? Oh, goodness me, it's going to change so much, isn't it? With the digital age and using AI for things. Anyway, I think that's enough out of me today. Like I say, I'm not asking you for any do this, do that, sign up to this. But if you can leave a 5-star review on this podcast, I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to have a little look at my other podcast, A Lusher Life, give it a search, give it a Google. And we talk on there about living the dream. But this, I was coming away from talking about the diet on this podcast. But because this is an important subject, I decided that I wanted to actually address it today. But next time we are going to talk about how you live your life with IBD and autoimmunity and ankylosing spondylitis and various others, because it's important. It's important to try and not see this as a death sentence and not see it as in my life is over, but fully recognising that you need to tweak some things and trying to learn to accept it, which I have difficulty with. And I think I can talk from a place of a lived experience, also known as phenomenology, which I'm really passionate about, on how we live our lives and how difficult it can be. I'm just going to mention in this podcast, because a lot of you will come back to this over and over, there's going to be a new book released. Actually, that's something you can do. If you did want to do something from me, go and have a look at my Amazon author page, because I am an author. I've got a few books on there. I would love you to buy one, download it. You can, some of them are 99p. You can get that from the KDP as well, if you wanted to. But I'm just about to release a new book. Now, talking about the lived experience. So while we were going through the whole lockdown situation, I got some other writers or some of them weren't even writers, get together and we wrote our experiences out. And I'm about to release a new book called Britain's Bubbles. And that's going to include a load of photographs that I took during the time when we was all in lockdown. What did we do? What was out there? The little stickers on the floor, stay away 2 meters and all that stuff, as well as the stories as well. It's going to be a brand new book. Just see if it's out there yet. I'm hoping to release it as soon as possible, within the next couple of weeks. So if you're listening to this today, it might not be there yet. Well, it won't be there yet. But yeah, I've got some other books as well. I've got one about the law of attraction. I've got a novella, which is a bit of romance to do with travel. And what other books have I got up there? I've got my Look an Elephant in the Eye, which is all about a taboo subject to do with living life whilst travelling in Southeast Asia, which is, quite interesting. I'm just currently reading the Celestine Prophecy, but I'm going to talk about that probably on my other podcast, because this one doesn't feel like it's the right fit for that. But anyway, have a little look. Hopefully that's been helpful today. And like I said, I'd love to hear from you. So please do reach out. Meanwhile, take care of yourselves, and I will look forward to speaking to you in the next podcast, when we will talk about living your life with autoimmunity and adjusting to your symptoms. All right then, take care, and all the love in the world to you. Bye bye for now.